purple, yellow and red.
What's up guys? It's Henry and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you guys are doing well because I'm doing very well. Guys, I have to tell you something. I've ordered the shit on the internet. It's called lazy glasses readers. I saw them on TikTok. I thought like, this is so cool. I really need this. So I've ordered them. These are the glasses and these are so-called prism glasses. So when I look at you right now, I can't see you actually. What I see is this. So now I can see you. You are probably wondering why I have ordered these kind of glasses. Well, you might know that when you do crafts, for example embroidering or crocheting, you might catch yourself falling into a bad posture. Like these postures, like looking down and having like a very round back, which is absolutely not good for your back. So I've ordered these glasses in order to use them for example embroidering, for crocheting, for even watching Netflix.
Master all 4 elements.
To avoid falling into bad postures. And I think it's pretty dope and it kind of looks funny though. Without further ado, let's talk about today's video actually, because like in the last video I was ironing on patches onto a hoodie, which was Harry Styles inspired and stuff like that. And I was thinking, since I've bought all the iron-on patches in the last video from the internet, I thought like, why not doing them myself? And it's pretty easy. Since I did like a Harry Styles inspired hoodie in the last video, I thought like, why not doing a Harry Styles patch or iron-on patch, which I can add to the hoodie in the end. So now we are going to embroider a Harry Styles patch, which you can actually iron on anything you want. Let's jump right into the DIY. Before we start with the DIY though, if you are a embroidery beginner, this video is also for you because this will teach you how to set your first stitches and how to embroider in general and turn your embroidery in the end into an iron-on patch, which is pretty cool, I guess. So as for the materials I've used, or you're gonna need a embroidery hoop, of course, then some scissors. What else you're gonna need is of course your design, and this is very important. If you want to print out your design, you have to make sure to print it out on a laser printer. In order to remove your design in the end, you have to sprinkle it with water, and if you want to sprinkle it with water, sometimes, and you do not use a laser printer, the color will bleed out and ruin your clothing or your piece of cloth in the end, and you do not want to have that. So I can fully recommend using a laser printer because this won't happen. What else you're gonna need is of course a piece of cloth you want to embroider on. I'm like a fan of reusing old scraps like of my clothing, but you can also use a felt if you want, or embroidery linen cloth. What else you're gonna need is of course your embroidery needles. I'm using needles out of metal. What else you're gonna need is of course embroidery floss. Then you also need some pins, some nail scissors, and actually some water. It comes in handy if you have it in a sprinkling bottle, but this is absolutely not essential. And last but not least, you also need some heat and bond. This is like a kind of glue texture that works with your iron. So this is all you're gonna need, so let's jump right into the process. Before we start the embroidering process, we have to set up our embroidery. For this, you're gonna have to cut out your design, of course, print it out on a laser printer, as I said before, cut it out, and then you have to apply your embroidery hoop to your cloth. You have to make sure that it's tight, so your cloth is not very loose in it, it's always tight. What else? You have to pin your design to the cloth. So before we start the embroidery process, we have to set up our needle and the embroidery floss. As you might know, embroidery floss is 6-stranded, and I can fully recommend using a 3-stranded floss for this embroidery because it gets way cleaner. That means before we set up our needle, we always separate the floss into 2 pieces. What you're gonna do is you take your 3 strands and loop it through the hole of your needle, and on the other side of your end of the embroidery floss, you're gonna tie a double knot. When you have done that, you can start your embroidery actually. So you have your design pinned to the cloth and you always start from the inside poking to the outside. I'm right-handed, so I'm taking my right hand, going underneath the cloth and poke my needle through, setting my first stitch. What we are going to do right now is we're not going to embroider the whole patch, obviously. We're only going to do the outline. We are going to do the outline first, then we are going to remove the whole paper because we do not want to work the paper into our embroidery, of course. Afterwards, we are going to fill it out with our colors. I'm using the colors of the outline of the separate spots I'm going to embroider. For example, I'm starting with the pants, and the pants, since the pants are like white, I'm using a white floss. So I'm starting from the inside, poking to the outside, setting my first stitch. When you poke your needle through, you pull the string all the way until the knot hits like the inside of your embroidery. And then we set our next stitch by poking from the outside into the inside, about half a centimeter of your last stitch further on your outline. That means you poke in again and then you pull all the way through until your string, your floss is tied again. And then it comes to the so-called split stitch. So for the split stitch is you are going to poke your needle right from the inside to the outside again, but not further the line. You go a little bit back in the line between your first two stitches and poke through your floss. So dividing your floss into several pieces with your needle, and then you go up again, set your next stitch further the line. So you have this intertwining process of going back, stitching, dividing your old stitch and going up again and set your next stitch further down the line. I'm using the split stitch for straight lines, but if we are going like in circles or for example edges, we are going to use the back stitch. The back stitch is working that you are poking or you define your next stitch always from the inside and go back in your stitches to your last stitch, poking from the outside into the inside on your last stitch. So you are going to continue this whole process, and as soon as your thread is going to get like very small and tight, and because you have used it all up, you have to actually remove your needle when you are facing the inside with your stitch. You remove the needle and then you are tying a double knot to your embroidery again on the inside. So we are hiding our knots all the time on the inside and not from the outside, because the outside will be beautiful and pretty. So we tie a knot and then we just cut off the excess of our thread, and then we just take our next embroidery floss, loop it into a needle and start the process all over again until we have embroidered all the outlines of our embroidery. Okay, as for the paper removal process, I'm using warm water in a sprinkling bottle. It doesn't have to be necessarily a sprinkling bottle, you just have to apply the warm water to your embroidery design. You can also use a sponge or just your bare hands actually. So we are wettening our design in order to get the paper very soft. As soon as we have sprinkled our design, we make sure to work it in. As soon as the paper is soft, we can actually remove it. And we're removing it with our hands, like the big chunks and pieces you can just remove with your hands, but for all the tiny bits and pieces I can fully recommend using a nail scissors, because the sharp ending will do the work. Some of you guys told me that they experienced that they have loose strings in the end after removing the paper. So what I can tell is be gentle removing the paper. Don't pull your strings out, or just work very, very carefully and gentle in order not to destroy your embroidery work. But if you have loose strings or if you have loose stitches, you can just easily embroider on top of them after removing the paper to have like a very, very tight and nice line of your embroidery outline. So as soon as we have removed all the paper, we are going to fill out our embroidery design with all the different colors actually. So for this process we are going to do actually the same. We just divide our thread into two pieces all the time. So we are also working from the inside with a three-stranded embroidery floss, and we are using the same actually technique and stitches. So I'm starting right off with the white again. As you can see, I'm working with like a split stitch again, and I'm setting my stitches a little bit bigger. You can do maximum 2 or 1.5 centimeters. And what I did is like the little details, like the little shadows on the side, I'm going to do at the very end. As for the buttons, I've decided actually to do a French knot, which is a technique that makes a round dotted 3-dimensional stitch. In order to do a French knot, you just poke your needle from the inside to the outside, and then you pull it tight, and then you wrap your string, your floss, 3 times around your needle, and then you pull down the axis of your embroidery floss with the other hand to fix it, and then you take up your needle and you poke back at the same spot where you poke from the inside to the outside before. You poke back in and pull your strings tight. I think it looks very cool on the buttons. So I can tell in the end, this will take you, if you are using the same kind of design for the Harry Styles, this took me about like 4 hours at least. And if you are a beginner, it might take you up a little bit longer in the end. Embroidery work is definitely not very fast. I find it for myself very meditating and very like calming in the end. So then we are actually done with the embroidery work. Alright, so when we are done with our embroidery work, we want to turn it into a iron-on patch. To do that is we are going to remove our embroidery hoop, of course, and then we are cutting out our design in order to remove all the flaps and bits and pieces around it. But do not cut it out too close to your embroidery design. And then we are going to cut out our heat and bond in a similar size. Afterwards, when you have done this, we are going to apply the heat and bond by using an iron. And for this you are applying your heat and bond on the back side of your embroidery, and then you just iron for several times. I would say not more than 3 seconds. As soon as it's cold again and you can touch it, you can check if it's like sticking to your embroidery. If not, you just repeat the process. As soon as the heat and bond is attached to our embroidery, we are going to peel off the little paper, and then our embroidery patch is actually done. And then you can cut it out once more. Afterwards, you can actually apply your patch on anything you want to do. If you want to, I don't know, sell your embroidery, you can just leave it there and sell it this way. If you want to apply it onto a jacket, onto a backpack, onto, I don't know, your shoes, your hoodies, your t-shirt, you are going to do the next step with me actually. What I did is, since I did like the Harry Styles inspired iron-on patch video in the last video, I'm going to do or use my patch, of course, on that hoodie. And since I wrote like on the middle of my hoodie, treat people with kindness, I thought like putting Harry next to it would be like the best fit for this hoodie. So what I did is I iron on my patch to the hoodie. After I think 2 times ironing, the patch was completely done to my hoodie, and now we're going to check out the final result. Guys, this is the final result and I absolutely love it. So this is the patch I've done, and where I put it is next to the treat people with kindness on the front of my hoodie. So my hoodie looks pretty cool right now. I absolutely love it, and the fact that I did this patch on my own is way cooler than having bought patches on the rest of the hoodie actually. That's Harry, that's Fine Line Harry on the hoodie. I absolutely love it. Alright guys, I hope you guys found this video a little bit helpful, or if you liked this video, please make sure to give it some thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then feel free to subscribe to the channel for more DIY videos in the future. And if you haven't checked out my social media yet, then feel free to check it out on the links shared on the screen. And next week is going to be very special because I'm going to release another new song, which is absolutely exciting. So next video is going to be a special DIY about my song. I'm very proud of it. I can't wait to be back, and I see you guys soon. I love you. I'm out. Bye bye. Ciao.